You grow up in a 2-bedroom apartment above a pharmacy that never closes. The neon sign hums through the night, bleeding red light through your window, flickering like a heartbeat that just can't keep rhythm. Your mother works double shifts behind the counter, counting pills, labeling bottles, answering questions she never really has time to answer. Your father is gone before you're old enough to remember his voice clearly. What you inherit from him isn't a memory, it's a silence. You spend your childhood surrounded by medicine, not the glamorous kind, not operating rooms or life-saving heroics. You grow up around expiration dates, generic brands, insurance rejections, and quiet desperation. You learn early that healthcare isn't about saving lives, it's about managing decline. At 10 years old, you can already pronounce words most adults struggle with. Amoxicillin, metoprolol, hydrochlorothiazide. You don't understand what they do yet, but you understand that people depend on them. You understand that missing a dose can matter. At 12, you start reading the pamphlets that come with prescriptions. Side effects, contraindications, mechanisms of action. It's dry, technical, repetitive. You read it anyway, not because you're curious, but because it feels like learning a language that controls something invisible. By 15, you've decided you're going to be a doctor, not because you dream of saving lives, but because you've seen what happens to people who can't navigate the system. You want to understand the rules, maybe even bend them. You study harder than anyone around you, not smarter, harder. There's a difference, and you feel it every day. You don't have natural brilliance. You have discipline, you have time, and nothing else competing for your attention. You get into medical school on your second attempt. The first rejection teaches you something important. Effort doesn't guarantee outcomes. Systems have filters. You just learn how to pass through them. Medical school is not what people think it is. It's not a noble journey. It's an endurance test. You stop thinking about patients as people and start thinking about them as variables. The first time you see a body in the anatomy lab, you feel something. The 10th time, you don't. That's when you know you'll make it. Residency is where the system reveals itself. Long hours, 28-hour shifts. You learn that confidence matters more than certainty. That hesitation kills faster than mistakes. You learn how death actually happens. Not dramatically, not with final words and closure. Death is quiet. It's paperwork. It's a line on a monitor going flat, while someone in the room is already thinking about the next patient. You also learn something else. Death is documented. Every death has a cause, a time, a signature, a form that translates a human life into codes the system can process. And those forms rely on you. You don't think much of it at first. It's just part of the job. Fill out the certificate, write the cause, sign your name. But then one night, during your second year of residency, a man dies in your unit. Late 50s, cardiac arrest, multiple comorbidities, the kind of patient who arrives already halfway gone. You do everything right. Protocol followed, medications administered, compressions delivered. Time of death called? You start filling out the certificate. Cause of death, myocardial infarction. It's clean, simple, expected. The attending physician looks over your shoulder, pauses. Add respiratory failure, he says. You hesitate. It's not wrong, but it's not precise either. Just put it, he repeats. You add it. That's the first time you understand something subtle, but important. The cause of death isn't always about accuracy. It's about acceptability. You move on. Months later, you see it again and again. Causes adjusted slightly to fit narratives, to avoid complications, to reduce scrutiny, to make the paperwork smoother. Nobody talks about it, but everyone does it. You graduate. You specialize in surgery. It's precise, controlled, outcome-driven. You like that. In surgery, there's less ambiguity. Either the patient survives, or they don't. Either you fix the problem, or you fail. You become good. Not exceptional, but reliable, consistent. The kind of surgeon hospitals like because you don't create problems. You follow protocol, you document everything, you keep your complication rates low, you build a reputation. And then, 5 years into your career, someone approaches you. Not in a dramatic way, not in a dark alley or a whispered conversation, just a hospital corridor. A man in a suit, mid-40s, calm, professional. He knows your name. He knows your work, your complication rates, your surgical history, your documentation habits. He asks you a simple question. How flexible are you with paperwork? You think it's a joke. You give a non-answer. He nods, like he expected that. Then he leaves. A week later, you see him again. This time, he's more direct. There are situations where families prefer discretion, he says. He hands you a card, no company name, just a number. You're not obligated, but if you ever want to make your life easier, call. You don't call. Not immediately. You go home. You sleep. You go to work. You operate. You fill out forms. You sign certificates, but the idea stays because you've already seen how flexible the system is. You've already adjusted causes of death for convenience. This is just one step further. You call 2 weeks later. The first case is simple. An elderly patient, terminal illness. Officially, the cause of death is ambiguous. Multiple contributing factors. The family wants it listed as natural causes. Clean, no complications, no investigation. You review the chart, it's defensible, you sign. You get paid more for that signature than you do for a full day in the operating room. You tell yourself it's harmless. You tell yourself you didn't lie. You just chose one truth over another. That's how it starts. The cases become more frequent, still subtle, still defensible. Complications reframed. Contributing factors shifted. Causes selected carefully. You're not inventing deaths. You're editing them. The man in the suit becomes a regular contact. You never learn his real role. A coordinator, a middleman between people who need outcomes and people who can provide them. You are now one of those people. The money changes things. You pay off your loans, upgrade your apartment, reduce your hours at the hospital. You tell yourself you're gaining control over your life, but it doesn't quite feel like control. Then the cases shift, less clean, less defensible. A middle-aged man found unresponsive. No clear medical history. The family insists it was a heart condition. You know it wasn't. There are signs, subtle, but there. You hesitate longer this time? The man in the suit notices. You're not changing reality, he says. You're simplifying it. You sign. You get paid. You don't sleep well that night. But you still go to work the next day. Because nothing happens. No investigation. No consequences. No one questions the certificate. That's when the line moves. You stop asking whether something is true and start asking whether it can be justified. Your reputation evolves, quietly. You become known, not publicly, but within certain circles, as someone who can resolve complications. You are no longer just a surgeon. You are a system navigator. Years pass, your income multiplies. Your official work decreases. Your unofficial work increases. You operate less, you sign more. Then one case changes everything. A young woman, late 20s, declared dead at home. The request is simple, natural causes. You review the file. Nothing about it fits. No history, no conditions, no explanation that makes sense. You push back. For this to work, there needs to be a medical basis, you say. The man in the suit is quiet for a moment. Sometimes, he says, the basis is implied. You understand. This isn't ambiguity. This is fabrication. You refuse. For the first time, you say no. He leaves. You go home. You sit at your table, staring at nothing, thinking about everything you've signed, everything you've justified, every line you've moved. You realize you've been preparing for this moment for years. You call him the next day, and you accept. The certificate you write is flawless. Technically sound, statistically normal, completely unremarkable. It passes without question. That's when you finally understand your role. You don't create the system, you enable it. Months later, something shifts. A review board starts auditing death certificates. Random checks, they say. You're not worried at first. Your work is clean, precise, careful. But then one of your cases gets flagged. Not the obvious ones. A small one. Early. You get called in. They ask questions. Why this cause? Why this sequence? Why this wording? You answer confidently. You've practiced this. They don't accuse you. They don't need to. They're looking for patterns. You leave knowing something has changed. You're no longer invisible. The man in the suit calls you that night. They're tightening things, he says. We need to be more careful. You've crossed that line too. You reduce your cases, become more selective, but it doesn't matter. Once you're in the system, you don't get to scale down on your terms, only on theirs. Another case gets flagged, then another. Individually, they're nothing. Together, they form a pattern. You are the pattern. You consider stopping, walking away, going back to being just a surgeon. But you know too much. And more importantly, they know you know. The final case comes without warning. No middleman, no explanation. Just a file and a message. This one needs to be perfect. You open the file, you recognize the name. It's someone from the hospital, a colleague. You read the details, and you understand immediately. This isn't about money, this is about containment. You sit there for a long time, thinking about your entire path, the pharmacy, the pamphlets, the first certificate you signed, all the small adjustments that led here. And then you realize something simple and irreversible. You never actually changed what you do, you just changed what your work means. You pick up your pen and you start writing. The certificate is perfect, clean, logical, unquestionable. You sign your name. A week later, the audits stop. No explanation, no follow-up. Everything returns to normal. But nothing feels normal anymore. You go back to your routine. You operate, you sign, you go home. But now, every time you write a cause of death, you understand exactly what it is. Not truth, not lies, just a version of reality someone needed to exist. You still draw a salary from the hospital, still wear scrubs, still scrub in, still perform surgeries. To everyone else, you're a competent, reliable surgeon. Nothing more. But somewhere in the system, there's a record of every certificate you've signed, every adjustment you've made, every reality you've rewritten. And you know something they don't. Death isn't just the end of a life, it's the beginning of a story. And the person who writes that story controls everything that comes after. This story is fiction. But somewhere, right now, a form is being filled out. A cause is being chosen. A signature is being written. And whatever gets written down becomes the truth everyone else has to live with.